Hello there. I welcome you all once again on today's edition of the Tax Clinic with Habib. And today we're going to be looking at the VAT system, that's the value added tax in Nigeria. So how does it work and how does it apply to you? So let's start from understanding what VAT means. So VAT, that's the value added tax, is just a tax on consumption. So it can be consumption of good, consumption of service. So it's a tax that is chargeable on consumption. And we can also say it's a multi-stage tax that is chargeable at each level of production and distribution. So let's take a look at a small example. In a particular distribution channel, so we have the manufacturer, we have the wholesaler, we have the retailer, and we have the final consumer. So at the manufacturing level, the manufacturer will input VAT in the price of its good, which becomes the total cost of that price to the wholesaler. The wholesaler as well will include VAT in the price, which becomes total cost to the retailer, and the retailer as well will include VAT in the price of the product, which now becomes the total product price to the final consumer. So as you can see that the final consumer will bear the whole burden of this VAT. So now let's look at how are you going to know that okay, this particular item is VAT. Like if you are selling a product or you are renting a service in Nigeria, and then how do you know that okay, you need to charge VAT on your invoice? So according to section 145 of the Nigerian Tax Act, this is categorized into three categories. So we have the goods, we have the service, and we have the incorporeal. So now for good, if your good is physically present in Nigeria, or it is imported or assembled or installed in Nigeria, then that's a vatable good. So far is not an exempted item. So if the good is present in Nigeria, it is installed or imported or even brought to Nigeria, then it's a vatable good. So when we're talking about service, so the person who is consuming this service, is that person reside in Nigeria? So it doesn't matter where that service is rendered outside Nigeria. So far as the person receiving that service, enjoying that service is a resident in Nigeria, then it's a vatable supply. So the last category is incorporeal. So what does incorporeal mean? In a simple definition, incorporeal is just a non-physical item, like you cannot touch it, but it has an economic value. So for example, we have intellectual property like copyright, trademark, we have goodwill, you can even say license like software license. So those are incorporeal items. You cannot see them, you cannot touch them, but they have economic value. So when does this form a taxable supply? It forms a taxable supply when it is being transferred or assigned or even sold to another party for a consideration. So you need to know that there has to be money involved in the transaction. So once this occurs, then it's a vatable supply. Now let's take a look at the time of supply, which is very important. Now, the reason why you need to know the time of supply is because VAT is charged at a particular point in time. You can't just decided to pay VAT whenever you like. No, it doesn't work like that. So it has to be charged at a particular point in time. And according to section 146 of the Nigerian Tax Act 2025, so that is categorized into three things. So whenever any of these things occur, or let me say any of the whichever of these three things occur, then you need to know that VAT is applied. VAT is due. So the first one is when you receive invoice or receipt from the supplier. The second one is if the goods has been delivered, and the third one is if the payment is due. So any one of the three, anyone that first occur, then you should know that a taxable supply has occurred. Then VAT is due. Also, let's take a look at the rate and the value. Like how will you know the value of the VAT? So section 147 of the Nigerian Tax Act still put the VAT rate at 7.5%, which means whatever product you are selling, whatever service you are offering, so far as it's a vatable supply, so you charge VAT of 7.5 on it, and that will be the total price to the end consumer. Now, how do you determine the value of your goods, the value of your service, or any other valuable supply? So, according to Section 148 of the Nigerian Tax Act, um, the the value of the taxable supply can be in monetary item, can be in monetary time. So if it's in monetary times, according to section 148 of the Nigerian Tax Act, it says that for a monetary consideration, its value shall be the amount with which the addition of VAT chargeable is equal to the consideration. So what does that mean? So let's assume I want to sell this airpod for 1,000 naira. So that's my value of this thing. Sorry, that's my price. I want to sell this thing. So I have to include VAT of 7.5, which is about 75 naira to this amount. So that will be the total consideration to the consumer, the person that is buying this product. So that's for monetary item. Now, for non-monetary items, so the section 148 as well says that for non-monetary consideration, the value of the supply shall be its market value. So if we're doing a transaction and we didn't, put a monetary amount to it, the tax authority will take the value of that particular product as at that same day we are making the transaction. That is the market value. Like what would be the market value if I'm selling this thing to another party in the open market? So that will be the value of that supply. And also, another thing we need to look at is the remittance and recovery of VAT. So there is what we call VAT input and output. So I'm going to break it down. So what does VAT input mean? Based on according to section 151 of the Nigerian Tax Act, it defines VAT input as the VAT paid to supplier on taxable supply. So for example, if I'm purchasing an item that I want to use in my production of goods and service, the VAT I'm going to be paying on that item is what we know as VAT input. So also the VAT output is the VAT I included on my sales. If I'm selling a product to probably the consumer of that product, the VAT I included on the amount of sales is what we know as VAT output. So in a simple terms, VAT input is the VAT on the purchase I make, and VAT output is the VAT on the goods I sold, like on my sales. So now at the end of the month, what I'm going to do is that I'll take my VAT output, which is the VAT of my sales, and I'll take my VAT input, which is the VAT on my purchase, subtract the amount, then whatever it is left is what I'm going to pay to the tax authority. And in the case whereby my input, that is the VAT on my purchase, is more than my VAT output, then I am entitled to a refund from the tax authority. Now, let's talk about the fun part of the VAT. Now, do you know that according to the Nigerian Tax Administration Act, small companies in general, or let me say small business in general, are exempted from any of the VAT obligation. Like as a small company, you are exempted from paying input VAT. You are also exempted from charging VAT on your invoice, and also you are exempted from VAT returns. So, small company, you are exempted. Now, let's look at the exempt supply. Like, what are the items that are exempt from VAT outrightly? So, we have on the list we have oil and gas export. So, if your company deals with oil and gas export, then it's exempt, is VAT exempt. If you sell baby products, if you sell baby products, then your product, the sales business is exempt from VAT. And one of the key important item on the list is locally manufactured sanitary towel, pads, and so on. And even our military items like military hardware, ammunition, all these locally manufactured uniforms supplied to the Nigerian Armed Forces, they are all exempted from VAT. We even have shared passenger and transport service on the list. All these downfall and co, they are exempted from VAT. Also, we have the purchase, hire, and rental of lease of agricultural equipment. This is very important because charging VAT on agricultural products will make the food price, surge and increase. So it is exempted from VAT, and the list is on and on and on. Now, we also have some items that are zero rated. So, the zero rated means the VAT on those items are 0%. So, we have basic food items like all our raw food, they are zero rated. The VAT on it is zero. We have all medical equipment, all pharmaceutical equipment, medical equipment, pharmaceutical equipment, fertilizer, locally produced animal, live cattle, goat, sheep, and the list is on and on and on. This is where we are going to draw the curtain on today's edition, and I hope you learn one or two things about how the VAT system works in Nigeria. So kindly subscribe to this channel to know more about the Nigerian tax system. Thank you and see you on the next edition.